Do you know what it's like to sleep on a park bench on Christmas Eve? While your only son is eating roast turkey in the house that you bought, it's a cold that doesn't leave your body even with 1,000 blankets. My name is Jack Sanders. I'm 74 years old, retired from the construction industry where I worked as a foreman for more than 40 years here in Chicago. I was born in a small town in Kentucky, but it was in this concrete jungle that I built my life, my house, and where I raised my only son, Ryan. Chicago can be a city that swallows people, but it also gives opportunities to those who are willing to work hard. And hard work was something I never lacked. If you're enjoying this story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Leave in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is when you're watching. Every day there's a new story here on this channel. It's good to know that someone is listening to me, because on that night of December 23rd, there was no one to listen to an old man like me. My whole life I dedicated myself to hard work. I woke up before sunrise, took 3 buses to get to the construction sites and returned when it was already dark. Calloused hands, aching back but a heart full of hope, because everything I did was for my son. After his mother passed away when he was only 7 years old, it was just the 2 of us against the world. With every brick I laid, every concrete slab I poured, every wall I raised, I thought, this is for Ryan's future. And I succeeded, you know. I bought a nice house in a decent neighborhood, paid for private school, gave him everything within my means, saved every penny while watching other colleagues spending money on nonsense. I always thought about tomorrow, about my son's security. When he graduated with a business degree, it was the happiest day of my life. My son won't have to break his body like I did, I thought proudly. Ryan grew up, married Jessica, started working at a big company. I was already getting old, my joints hurting, my body paying for years of sacrifice. I gave them the master bedroom of the house and moved to the smaller one. It was the least I could do for my son to be comfortable, right? After all, the house was too big for an old man alone. But not even in my darkest nightmares could I have imagined what would happen that December 23rd. A date that stayed marked in my memory as the day I discovered the true value my sacrifice had for my only son. Want to keep listening? Then let me tell you how it was that I, at 74 years old, ended up spending Christmas on the street. I was born in a small town in Kentucky, in a simple family. My father was a bricklayer and my mother took in laundry. The house had a dirt floor with roof tiles that let the rain in and walls that barely kept out the wind. We were 5 siblings, all sleeping in the same room. From an early age, I learned that only hard work could give me a chance in this life. By 12, I was already helping my father at construction sites. I carried buckets of mortar, bricks, sand, everything a skinny boy could balance on his shoulders. I went to school only in the mornings. In the afternoons, work called, so I only studied until 4th grade, couldn't go further. But I learned to read, write, and do math properly, which was already a lot for that time. When I turned 18, I decided to try my luck in Chicago. My father gave me a tight hug and my mother cried at the farewell. "Go, son, but don't forget about us." Those were the last words I heard from her before boarding the bus with a cardboard suitcase tied with string and $50 in my pocket. I arrived at the Greyhound station in Chicago in 1969, at the height of the city's construction boom. The city was buzzing, buildings springing up everywhere. I quickly got a job as a laborer at a large construction company. I slept in a dormitory with 15 other men, sent a little money to my family every month and saved the rest. I worked like a convict, Monday through Saturday, sometimes even Sunday, when there was urgent work. In 5 years, I had become a skilled mason. In 10, I was a crew leader. In 15, a foreman. I knew every detail of construction, from foundation to finishing touches. Jack is a guarantee of a job well done, the engineers would say. By that time, I had met Linda, a simple woman who worked as a seamstress in a clothing factory. We got married in 1978, in a simple but beautiful ceremony. We pooled our savings and bought a small piece of land on the south side of Chicago. Gradually, on weekends and days off, I built our house. First just one room, then another, until we had a complete house with a living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, all built with my own hands, brick by brick. Linda got pregnant in 1979, and in 1980, Ryan was born. our only child. Our joy was short-lived. When the boy was 7, Linda discovered an aggressive pancreatic cancer. In 6 months, she was gone. It was as if a piece of me had been ripped out. I found myself alone with a small boy to raise, a pain in my chest that wouldn't go away and bills to pay. But I looked at Ryan and thought, now it's just the two of us, son, and I'm going to give everything I have so you can have a better life than mine. And so it was. I worked all day at construction sites and relied on the help of a neighbor who watched the boy until I returned. At night, I still had time to help with homework, tell a story, give some affection. On weekends, I would take him to see the Cubs play, to the park, or sometimes we'd just stay home watching TV. We were companions, my boy and I. With great sacrifice, I managed to put him in a private school. Education is the only wealth that nobody can take from you, I always told him. Sometimes I worked at 2 different construction sites, connecting one shift to another to ensure nothing was lacking. Sometimes I came home so tired I could barely eat dinner. But seeing Ryan's report card with good grades made it all worth it. In 1996, I sold the house on the south side and managed to buy a better one in a more structured neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. It was a beautiful house, with 3 bedrooms and a backyard. I remember Ryan, already a teenager, running through the entire house, choosing the largest bedroom for himself. "It's yours, son, you deserve it," I said proudly. When he got accepted to college for a business degree, I cried with joy. My son was going to have a degree, was going to work in a suit and tie. He wouldn't need to break his back like me. I paid every cent of that college tuition with the sweat of my brow. I worked overtime, took side jobs on weekends, saved on everything possible, but seeing him graduate in 2002 was my greatest reward. Soon after, Ryan met Jessica, a girl from a middle-class family. Her parents, Mr. Anthony and Mrs. Carol, had a hardware store in Oak Park. They weren't rich, but they lived well. At first, they treated me with some distance, perhaps because I was a simple man with a country accent and calloused hands. But after they saw that my house was paid off and I had a good job, the relationship improved. In 2005, Ryan and Jessica got married. I was already 54, starting to feel the weight of age and decades of heavy work. The back pain increased, my knees complained, sometimes my blood pressure went up. Even so, I worked a few more years until I retired in 2010, already at 59. The pension wasn't much, but it was enough to live simply. It was during this time that Ryan lost his job at the company where he had worked since college. He was having difficulty finding something new, and Jessica was pregnant with their first child. Without thinking twice, I offered, "Come live here with Jessica. The house is big, there's room for everyone." I gave them the master bedroom, took the smaller one, and we turned the 3rd bedroom into a nursery. The first years were smooth. Ryan found a new job. The first grandchild was born, then the second. The house became full, noisy, with life. I took care of the children when I could, helped with expenses, did small repairs. I was happy seeing my family united under the same roof, even when I noticed that Ryan began to behave as if the house were his. I overlooked it. It's natural, I thought. He's lived here for so long that he considers it his home. But gradually, I noticed subtle changes in his and Jessica's behavior. They began to make renovations without consulting me. They replaced furniture that I had for years. They complained when I watched TV in the living room because it disturbed their rest. In family gatherings, I was increasingly left aside, as if I were a stranger in my own house. In 2022, Ryan bought a new Honda Civic financed. As he still had some restrictions on his credit due to old debts, he put the car in my name with the promise of transferring it as soon as it was paid off. The same happened with some household bills. On paper, everything was still mine, but in practice I was being pushed more and more into a corner, like an old piece of furniture that nobody has the courage to throw away. I noticed that the visits from Jessica's parents became more frequent. Whenever they came, I noticed looks and whispered conversations. Once I heard Jessica say to Ryan, "I don't know why your dad still needs that big room. He barely uses it." I pretended not to hear, but that hurt. The room wasn't even big. It was the smallest in the house, and it was the only space I had left. It was in mid-December 2023 that I noticed a different agitation in the house. Jessica was decorating everything for Christmas with more care than normal. Extra shopping, deep cleaning, even my room was organized without my permission. I asked Ryan what was happening, and he avoided the subject. "Nothing special, Dad, it's just Christmas." But I felt that something was coming. In 50 years of construction work, I learned to sense when a roof was about to collapse. It was the night of December 23rd, 2023. Outside, Chicago was already all decorated, lights blinking on the facades of houses, Christmas trees in shop windows. Inside the house, I felt that restlessness, like when you sense a heavy rain coming, even without seeing clouds in the sky. I've been working in construction for a long time, and your body learns to feel when something's wrong with the structure. I was in my little room organizing some old photographs. I found one from Ryan's graduation. Him with the diploma in hand, me beside him, in a rented suit, smiling from ear to ear. I looked at that photo and thought, every day of hard work was worth it. At that time, he hugged me tight and said I was his hero. Where did that boy get lost? There were footsteps in the hallway. The door opened without any knock, without any "excuse me." It was Ryan. He had a strange expression on his face, half serious, half ashamed. In his hands he carried a suitcase. I recognized it immediately. It was my old suitcase, the one I used on the rare occasions when I traveled to visit relatives back home. "What's up, son? Got a trip planned?" I asked, trying to break the ice with a joke. He didn't smile. He stood at the door without looking me in the eyes. "Dad, I packed your things," he finally said. I didn't understand immediately. I looked at the suitcase, at Ryan, at the suitcase again. That's when he entered the room and placed the luggage on my bed. He opened the zipper, and I saw it was full. Some shirts, pants, my blood pressure medication, toothbrush, even the graduation photograph I was looking at minutes before. "What do you mean you packed my things?" I asked, feeling a chill in my stomach. Ryan took a deep breath as if gathering courage. For the first time that night, he looked me directly in the eye. "The in-laws are spending Christmas here," he said, in a voice that didn't sound like my son's. "They need your room." I still didn't quite understand. I thought he was asking me to sleep in the living room for one night, which would already be absurd. "And where am I supposed to stay?" I asked, confused. That's when the blow came, straight to the chest, like a sledgehammer knocking down a wall. "Go out on the street and find a place," he said bluntly. "There are hotels, shelters, I don't know." I was speechless. My own son, the one I carried in my arms, taught to walk, paid for school and college, was sending me to the street on Christmas Eve. "Son, it's Christmas Eve," was all I could say, with my voice almost failing. "So what? You can stay at a cheap hotel. There are several around the city. Ryan, are you asking me to leave my own house, the house that I built and that I paid for? This house is as much mine as yours now, Dad. I've lived here for years, paid the bills, maintained everything." "But the deed is in my name," I argued, trying to understand all that madness. "It's just a piece of paper. In practice, it's my house too, and today I need your room. The in-laws arrive in an hour." An hour? He had given me 1 hour to leave my own house on Christmas Eve, at 74 years old and with nowhere to go. The world seemed to be upside down. My heart was beating so hard, I could feel it in my ears. "Can't I stay in the living room on the couch?" I tried to negotiate, still not believing what was happening. "No, Dad, the living room will be full. We're having guests. There will be the Christmas dinner. The kids will be opening presents. It's not possible. And in the backyard, in the tool shed." "Stop it. It's not dignified for a man your age to sleep in the backyard. Go to a hotel and that's it." Dignity. He spoke of dignity while throwing me out on the most important night of the year. The hypocrisy was so great it would have made me laugh if not for the pain I was feeling. "How long will they stay?" I asked, already without much hope. "Until after New Year's, probably. More than a week." He wanted me to disappear for more than a week. I looked out the window. It was already getting dark. I thought about the hotels in the area. They would all be full. It was Christmas. I thought about shelters, also full, and many closed earlier on Christmas Eve. I had no close relatives in Chicago. Most of my friends had already passed away or moved. I looked at my son, searched in that adult face for the boy who once held my hand and said he loved me. I didn't find him. He was a 46-year-old stranger who looked at me impatiently, checking his watch as if I were just an overdue appointment on his schedule. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. My father always taught me that a man doesn't lower himself, doesn't beg for attention, doesn't ask for what is his by right, and that house was mine by right. Every brick had my sweat, every roof tile my sacrifice. I got up in silence, closed the suitcase, took my wallet, my documents, and the old cell phone. I put on my coat. It was cold in Chicago that time of year, around 2500 at night. I passed by Jessica, who was in the living room decorating the Christmas tree with gold balls and red ribbons. She didn't even look up when I passed. She pretended I was invisible, as she had been doing lately. Did she know about her husband's plan? Had it been her idea? I'll never know. I opened the front door, the one I had installed years ago. I went out into the night air without looking back. If I had looked, I might have lost my courage, or worse, might have begged to stay. And I wouldn't do that even if they killed me. The streets were already empty, everyone inside their homes preparing the Christmas dinner, gathering the family. Everyone except me, a 74-year-old man with a suitcase in hand and nowhere to go. I walked to the main avenue and tried 3 hotels, all full as I suspected. A taxi driver informed me that the shelters in the area had already closed their doors at that hour. I thought of sleeping at the bus terminal, but the security guards didn't let anyone stay there during the night. I ended up reaching a park. There were some wooden benches under the trees. I chose one that was uncovered. I placed the suitcase as a pillow and laid down. My body ached, age doesn't forgive, and a park bench wasn't made for an old man to sleep on. The cold entered through my bones, even with the coat. Lying there alone on Christmas night, I thought about my life, about the sacrifices I made, about the nights I stayed awake when Ryan was sick, about the years working under sun and rain to provide comfort for him. And now, where was I? Thrown out on the street like an old dog that nobody wants anymore. It was the loneliest Christmas of my life. Worse even than the first after Linda died, because in that one, at least, I had little Ryan to hug me and tell me he loved me. Now I had no one, just the silence of the park and the distant sound of fireworks that began to explode at midnight. As I looked at the stars, an idea began to form in my head, an idea that at first seemed absurd to me, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. Ryan had forgotten one important detail. The house was in my name, the car too. He paid the installments of the Civic, it's true, but the document was mine. I had never transferred the house to his name, despite having promised I would do it when he turned 40. Something inside me, perhaps a premonition, prevented me from making that transfer. And now I was thankful for that 6th sense that old people sometimes have. As the cold increased and I huddled on that hard bench, a plan began to form in my head. If my son wanted to teach me a lesson in cruelty, I was going to teach him a lesson in consequences. I couldn't sleep properly that night. I would doze off for a few minutes, then wake up shivering with cold. At 5 a.m. I was completely awake, with a sore body and a mind clear as water. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I waited for daylight. The stores and businesses wouldn't open on the 24th Christmas Eve, but I knew some people who would work anyway. One of them was Mr. Marcus, a real estate agent who had helped me in the past. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I called him. The sleepy voice answered on the 4th ring. Mr. Marcus, this is Jack, the former foreman from Sunrise Construction. Jack, everything okay? It's Christmas Eve, man. I know, sir, but I need an urgent favor. I want to sell my house today. Today? Christmas Eve? Are you crazy, Jack? I've never been more lucid, sir. I want to sell quickly, below market value. I want the deal closed today. There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then Mr. Marcus's voice, now completely awake. Look, by coincidence, I have a client, a Chinese businessman, who's looking for a house in that area. He would pay cash, but would ask for about 20% below market value for the rush. I accept. Are you sure, Jack? Your house is worth about $1.5 million on the market today. He would pay $1.2 million. It's a big difference. I accept. I just want it to be quick today. And your son, the family that lives with you? Don't worry about them. The house is mine, the document is in my name. I can sell it if I want, can't I? Yes, of course. I just thought this rush was strange. I have my reasons, sir. Can you schedule it for today? Yes, I can. The Chinese guy is dying to close the deal before the end of the year. Where shall I meet you? We scheduled at a cafe near the park where I had spent the night. I took a shower in a gas station public bathroom, arranged my clothes the best I could, and went to the meeting. Mr. Marcus arrived punctually at 10 o'clock with a folder full of documents. The Chinese businessman appeared half an hour later, a short man with glasses who spoke English with a heavy accent. I explained that the house would be his, but the handover could only happen in January after the holidays. He didn't mind. He was traveling to China and would only return in January anyway. We signed the papers. He made the bank transfer right there. Suddenly I had $1.2 million more in my account, a fortune I never imagined having in my life, and most importantly, the house was no longer mine nor Ryan's. It belonged to the Chinese businessman who planned to transform the property into a traditional tea house. But my plan didn't stop there. After Mr. Marcus and the Chinese businessman left, I took a bus to the Honda dealership where Ryan had bought the Civic. "Good morning, sir," I said to the salesman who attended me. "I want to sell a car." "What car do you have, sir?" "A 2022 Honda Civic, like new. It's in my name." His eyes sparkled. Used cars were valuable, especially a Honda. "Do you have the document with you?" I showed the document. Everything was in order, in my name. Ryan made the monthly payments, but the ownership was mine. "I can give you $45,000 for it, cash," offered the salesman after making some calls. "Deal." In less than 2 hours, I left the dealership without a car but with an additional $45,000 in my account. In total, I had $1,145,000 more, enough money to restart life anywhere with comfort. I went back to the park and sat on the same bench where I had spent the night. I took the cell phone out of my pocket and looked at it. It was 4 p.m. on December 24th, Christmas Eve. Within a few hours, families would be gathering for dinner, including my ex-family. I wondered if I should call Ryan, tell him what I had done, but I decided to wait. I wanted him to enjoy his Christmas, the dinner with the in-laws in the room that was mine. For now, I would let him think that I was just a foolish old man who had accepted being expelled. At 7 p.m. my cell phone rang. It was Ryan. "Dad, are you okay? Where are you?" I noticed a falsely concerned tone in his voice. I bet Jessica or the in-laws had asked about me, and he needed to pretend he cared. "I'm fine, son," I replied, keeping my voice firm. "Look, there's some leftover food from the dinner here. Do you want me to save it for you?" Food? Leftovers? Was that what I deserved in his view, the crumbs from the table? "No, thank you, I'm good. Where are you?" "In a warm place," I lied. In fact, I was still on that park bench, feeling the cold of the night that was beginning. "So you're in a hotel then?" "Something like that." "Ah, good. When are you coming back?" "I don't know yet. How long are the in-laws staying again?" "Until after New Year's, as I told you, but if you need to come back before, no." "No, it's fine. Enjoy the house." My house, I thought, but didn't say. "All right, then Merry Christmas, Dad." "Merry Christmas, son." I hung up and felt the tears running down my face. I wasn't crying from sadness. I was crying from anger, from disappointment, from thinking about how much love I had given to that man and how he had repaid me. I spent that night in a cheap hotel that I finally managed to find. It wasn't comfortable, but it was better than the park bench. On the 25th Christmas Day, I stayed in the room ordering food by phone and thinking about what I would do from then on. On December 26th, 2 days after the night I was expelled, my cell phone rang again. It was Ryan once more, but now his voice was different. He was in panic. "Dad, there's a Chinese man here." "Chinese?" I repeated, as if I didn't know what he was talking about. "Yes, he showed up this morning. Says he bought the house. He has the deed and everything." "Ah, that's true," I responded calmly. Silence on the other end. Then the shocked voice. "What do you mean?" "It's true. I sold the house to the Chinese man. He's the new owner." How did you sell my house? He shouted beside himself. Yours? It's in my name, son. It was my house, now it's the Chinese man's. But I live here. You lived. Now you have 30 days to leave. That was the deadline I gave the new owner. Dad, are you crazy? No, son, I'm very lucid. Oh, and the Civic too, I sold it. More silence. Then a muffled shout, as if he had moved the cell phone away from his mouth to curse. The car too? Yes, it was in my name, right? $45,000. Paid in cash. But I was paying the installments. Well, now you don't have to pay anymore. The car doesn't exist anymore. At least not for us. The explosion came as I expected. Where am I going to live? On the street, as you sent me. But it's different. Why? You're young. You can handle more cold than I can. I have a family, Dad. I have the kids, Jessica. And I wasn't your family when you sent me to the street on Christmas Eve. You didn't think about that. I heard Ryan breathing heavily, trying to control himself. Look, Dad, let's talk. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? You packed my suitcase, told me to find a place on the street, because your room, my room, was going to be occupied by the in-laws. What part of that was misunderstood? I didn't think you would actually sleep on the street. And where did you think I would sleep? The hotels were all full. It was Christmas Eve. I didn't think it through. I'm sorry. Too late for apologies, son. That's when I heard a commotion on the other end of the line. Altered voices, someone taking the phone. It was an older voice, male. I recognized it immediately. Mr. Anthony, Jessica's father. Jack, it's Anthony. What's going on? Ryan is saying you sold the house. Yes, I did, Mr. Anthony. But why? So suddenly? Because it was no longer my home. When you expel a father on Christmas Eve, the house ceases to be a home. What do you mean, expel? What are you talking about? I felt my heart speed up. Had Ryan not told the in-laws the truth? Ryan didn't tell you. He sent me to the street on the night of the 23rd, said you were going to occupy my room and that I had to find another place to stay. What? Ryan's voice thundered. He told us you had traveled, that you had gone to visit a relative back home. Traveled? I slept on a park bench, Mr. Anthony. Christmas Eve, 25 Degfee, 74 years old. There was more commotion on the other end. Mrs. Carroll's voice approached the phone. My God, Jack, because of us? We would never allow this. Never. Well, that's what happened, Mrs. Carroll. Ryan expelled me to give my room to you. We didn't know. We thought you had really traveled. How horrible. More altered voices. I clearly heard Mr. Anthony shouting at Ryan. You monster, you expelled your father because of us? Ryan's a monster. Mrs. Carroll's voice echoed. Then I heard the noise of things being dragged, suitcases being closed. We're leaving right now, said Mr. Anthony, returning to the phone. We don't stay where a father is expelled. That's inhumane. I thanked silently. At least the in-laws had some sense of decency. I hung up the phone feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. It wasn't revenge I wanted, it was justice. And justice was being done. Half an hour later, the cell phone rang again. It was Jessica. Father-in-law, don't do this, she begged, her voice choked. I already did, Jessica. We have 2 children, where are we going to live? I also had a child, he sent me to the street. It was a mistake. Ryan is sorry. Return the house, please. I can't, I already sold it, the papers are signed, the money is in my account. And what are we going to do now? I don't know, Jessica. Maybe feel firsthand what it's like not to have a roof. Maybe learn that family is not thrown away like garbage. She started crying. A loud, desperate cry. It didn't move me. I had already cried alone on a park bench on the coldest night of the year. Nobody cared about my tears. The following days were total desperation for Ryan and Jessica. They had 30 days to vacate the house, the deadline I had given the Chinese businessman. Ryan tried to rent something in the same region, but he discovered it wasn't so easy. Rents were expensive. They asked for a guarantor deposit, insurance, and he had no savings. He spent everything he earned, never saved anything. The car, which was one of the few valuable things they had also been sold. They were on foot with 2 small children and a tight deadline to leave the house. In the end, they ended up living with Jessica's parents. Their house was small, a two-bedroom apartment in Oak Park. They had to squeeze into one bedroom, Ryan, Jessica, and the two children, a situation that would be temporary, but ended up extending longer than they imagined. Meanwhile, I rented a small but comfortable apartment. 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, bathroom, view of the park. It was simple, but it was mine. No one could expel me from there. The rest of the money I invested. I didn't need luxury, just security and dignity. 6 months had passed since that Christmas Eve that changed everything. The month of July was coming to an end, and I had already adapted to the new life. The money from the sale of the house and the car was well invested, yielding an extra beyond my retirement. I could finally live without financial worries, something I had never experienced in my entire life of hard work. My new apartment was near Lincoln Park, a luxury I never imagined having. Every morning I had my coffee on the balcony, watching people running, riding bikes, living. Sometimes I caught myself thinking about Ryan, about the children. I missed my grandchildren, it's true, but not my son. The wound he had opened was too deep. One day I was shopping at the supermarket near home when I heard a familiar voice calling me. "Dad." I turned around and saw Ryan. He was different, thin, haggard, with deep dark circles and an unshaven beard. He wore a wrinkled shirt and worn jeans, quite different from the neat and confident man I knew. "Ryan," I replied without showing emotion. We stood staring at each other for a few seconds, neither of us knowing quite what to say. It was he who broke the silence. "Dad, how are you?" "I'm fine. You disappeared. Nobody knew where you were." That was the intention. More silence. I continued putting groceries in the cart, as if that encounter were the most normal thing in the world. "Where do you live?" he finally asked. "I have my place. Can I visit?" "No, might expel me again." I saw pain in his eyes, but it was nothing compared to what I had felt on that cold night. "Dad, I'm living on charity at my in-laws' house, in a small room with Jessica and the kids. It's hell. I know how it is. I also lived in a cramped place when you were little, remember? The difference is that I worked hard and bought a house that you took as yours." "I know I was wrong, Dad. I was terribly wrong." "A mistake is something you fix, son. What you did was a choice. You chose to treat me like a nuisance." He lowered his eyes, visibly ashamed. "How are the boys?" I asked, feeling a tightness in my chest thinking about my grandchildren. "Are they well?" "They're fine. They ask about Grandpa." "Tell them Grandpa loves them." "Why don't you tell them yourself? Come visit them at my in-laws." "No, thank you." I finished my shopping and headed to the checkout. Ryan followed me, almost begging, "Dad, please, we need to talk properly. I want to ask your forgiveness. For real." I looked at him. I saw genuine despair in his eyes. Maybe it was time to at least hear what he had to say. "Have coffee with me then after I pay for the groceries." We went to a cafe nearby. We sat at a table away from others where we could talk without being disturbed. I ordered black coffee. He ordered the same. "How did you find me?" I asked. "I didn't find you. It was a coincidence. I came to buy medicine for Carol. She's sick. The medicine is expensive. I'm helping as much as I can." I was silent, waiting for him to continue. "Dad, everything has fallen apart in these months. Jessica left me. She said she can't stand living cramped with her parents anymore. She took the kids to her sister's house in Milwaukee. I miss them terribly. I'm sorry. I lost my job too. The company reduced staff, and I was one of the first to be laid off. I'm doing odd jobs and delivering food through an app with a motorcycle borrowed from my brother-in-law. Life comes full circle, son. I know I deserved all this. What I did to you was monstrous. I have no excuses." I took a sip of coffee, observing the man across from me. He was my son, flesh of my flesh, but he was also the man who had thrown me out on the coldest night of the year. "Why did you do that, Ryan? Really, I want to understand." He took a deep breath as if organizing his thoughts. "I can't explain it properly, Dad. I was consumed by greed, by selfishness. I saw the house as mine, even knowing it was yours. I saw you as a burden, someone who was there taking up space. I forgot everything you did for me. I forgot who I was." I nodded, letting him continue. "The in-laws really didn't know. When they found out what I had done, they were horrified. Mr. Anthony barely talks to me even today, even though I'm living in his house. He says a man who doesn't respect his father deserves no respect. Mr. Anthony is a man of his word. You can't imagine the hell it's been, Dad. I lost everything. The house, the car, my job, my wife, my dignity. I only didn't lose my children because Jessica still lets me see them on weekends. And what do you want from me, Ryan? Forgiveness, money, a place to stay? I just want a chance to rebuild our relationship, Dad. I know I don't deserve it, but you're my father, the only one I have. I remained silent for a long time, thinking. Part of me wanted to hug that broken man in front of me, tell him everything would be okay. Another part still felt the pain of betrayal, the cold of that night in the park. I'll think about it, Ryan. I can't promise anything now. I understand, Dad. Just you listening to me is already more than I deserve. We exchanged phone numbers. I had changed mine precisely to not be found. We said goodbye with a formal handshake, no hug. It was still too early for that. I returned to my apartment thinking about the conversation. Was Ryan really sorry, or was he just desperate because he had lost everything? People change when they hit rock bottom. A few days later, I received a letter from him. Yes, a paper letter written by hand. It said, Dad, I lost everything, the house, my job, Jessica left me. I live on charity in a small room at my in-laws. I work 2 jobs to support myself and help the boys. I know I deserve this and much more for what I did to you. Forgive me. Even if you never want to see me again, I need to know that you've forgiven me. I've always loved you, even when I acted as if I didn't love you. Your repentant son, Ryan. I held that letter in my hand for a long time, reading it over and over. Then I picked up a pen and paper and wrote my response. Ryan, I forgive, but I don't forget. You gave me the street at Christmas. Now you know the address. It's a cold place, I know. But it's also a place of learning. I hope you've learned the lesson that I learned. Respect is not imposed, it's earned. Love is not charged, it's given. One day perhaps we can rebuild what was broken, but it will take time. Your father, Jack. I sent the letter and went back to my routine. The months passed. Ryan occasionally sent messages telling how the grandchildren were, how he was trying to rebuild his life. I responded with courtesy, but kept my distance. The wound was still open. A year passed since that fateful Christmas. December came again, bringing the same decorations in the stores, the same songs on the radio, the same spirit of fellowship in the air, and also the same painful memories for me. I received a message from Ryan. Dad spend Christmas with me? Where? I replied after thinking a lot. In my rented room. He had left his in-laws' house finally. He had rented a room in a boarding house while saving money for something better. Is there space? I asked. We barely fit me and the kids when they come to visit. Then no space, no father. It seemed harsh, but it was a necessary lesson. If he couldn't receive me with dignity, he shouldn't invite me just out of obligation. It was exactly what had led to the situation of the previous year. I understand, Dad. Maybe next year when I have a better place. Maybe, I replied. I spent that Christmas alone, but not lonely. I made a small dinner for myself. I watched old movies on TV and reflected on everything that had happened that year. It had been a year of great changes, of pain, but also of liberation. Ryan continued his struggle to rebuild his life. He got a better job. He rented a small but decent apartment. He started to see his children more. We maintained contact, talked occasionally on the phone. The relationship was slowly being rebuilt piece by piece, with care and patience. I also moved forward. With the money well invested, I began to travel across America, see places I always wanted to see. I made new friends, participated in senior groups. I discovered that there was life, a lot of life beyond those 4 walls where I had felt so alone in recent years. When people asked me about my family, I told my story without rancor. He's the old man who sold his ungrateful son's house at Christmas, some said who had already heard about it. I became almost an urban legend in certain circles of Chicago, but I wasn't proud of it. I hadn't done it for revenge or for fame. I had done it out of necessity, for emotional survival, to show my son and myself that I still had value, that my life couldn't be discarded like an old piece of furniture. The biggest lesson I learned, and I hope Ryan also learned, is that our actions have consequences. That respect is not something you give only because it's convenient, but because it's due. That family is not just who shares the same roof, but who shares the same heart. Ryan lost a lot. A $1.2 million house, a $45,000 car, his marriage, the respect of his in-laws, and, for a time, his father. All because he decided to send me to the street at Christmas. It was too high a price for a night of comfort for the in-laws, who ironically didn't even want that room at the expense of my dignity. Today I spend my Christmases traveling, good hotels, good food, no family around, it's true, but with intact dignity and with the clear conscience of someone who owes nothing to anyone. Maybe one day, when the wounds are completely healed, Ryan and I can spend a Christmas together again, as father and son, not as landlord and unwanted tenant. Until then, we follow our separate paths, united only by memories, some good, others painful, and by the blood that runs in our veins. Because a son who sends his father to the street at Christmas deserves to know the same address. The street doesn't choose age, but it chooses ingratitude to punish, and Ryan learned that lesson in the hardest way. A father's house is not guaranteed, respect is. Or you sleep on the street as you made your father sleep at Christmas. Almost 2 years have passed since that Christmas Eve that changed everything. Today, at 76, I look back and see how life can turn upside down in the blink of an eye. From that cold night on a park bench until now, a lot has changed. The biggest lesson I learned was about value. Not the value of houses, cars, or bank accounts. I'm talking about the value of a human being that doesn't diminish with age. We, the elderly, are not furniture that can be relocated or discarded when inconvenient. We are living history, memory, the foundation. When a son forgets that, the entire family structure collapses. Ryan paid a high price for what he did. He lost everything, materially and emotionally, but he also had a chance to start over, to rebuild his life on more solid foundations. Today he lives in a simple but decent apartment. He works as a manager in a hardware store. Ironic, isn't it? The man who despised his foreman father now makes a living selling bricks and cement. Jessica never came back to him. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. The boys live with her in Milwaukee but visit their father every other week. Ryan finally understood what it's like to miss someone you love but cannot be close to. As for me and Ryan, we gradually resumed contact. First through messages, then phone calls, until a few months ago we met in person. It was a simple Sunday lunch with the grandchildren present. We talked about the past, but mainly about the future. We cried together, as we hadn't done in a long time. "Dad, do you really forgive me?" he asked with teary eyes. "I forgave the moment I answered your letter, son. What took time was to trust again. We didn't go back to living together, nor will I. I have my little place now, my independence, my peace. With the invested money from the sale of the house and the car, I live comfortably. I travel when I want, see new places, make friends. I discovered that old age can be the best phase of life, if lived with dignity and autonomy. Ryan learned that respect is not bought or imposed. It's earned day by day with small gestures. He now calls me every day, even if just for 5 minutes, not out of obligation but genuine affection. And when he says, "I love you, Dad," I feel it's true. Now we celebrate Christmas together, but each in his own home. He comes to pick me up. We spend the dinner with the grandchildren, and then he brings me back. Mutual respect, each one's space preserved. Home is not necessarily where you sleep every night, it's where your heart feels welcomed. If you have elderly parents, remember one day, if you're lucky, you'll also be old. Treating the elderly with dignity is not a favor, it's an investment in your own future. And if you're an elderly person being disrespected, know that it's never too late to set boundaries and start over. At 74, I was reborn. You can too. The house was mine, but Ryan thought it was his. The car was in my name, but he acted like the owner. When he expelled me on Christmas Eve, he forgot those details, and the detail made all the difference. The wisdom I leave is this: dignity has no price. It may cost a house, a car, even family relationships, but living without it is not really living. I prefer a park bench with dignity than a palace where I'm treated as a nuisance. Ryan understood this the hard way. So did I. We both lost. We both gained. And today, despite everything, we are stronger and wiser. As my father used to say, the storm knocks down the weak trees and strengthens the resistant ones. Ryan and I survived the storm. We are standing, each in his corner, but united by something stronger than walls and roofs, the recovered respect. Thank you for listening to me until here. If you liked it, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. If you watched until the end, comment down below what you thought of my actions. And don't forget to check out the other stories here on the Grandpa's Voice channel on the screen. There are two that you'll enjoy. A hug from this old man here,